performances?
Well, because I came on so strong with what I did about making fun of life and people and so forth, and I wanted people to get the idea that I am a human being. And so even in my regular performance to this very day, at the end I do a little thing about life and friendship and so forth, but it's very short and it fits in with what I do, and it's done with music too. And so I always thought that it just shows that I'm a guy, you know. Maybe gives you an insight of my soul and my feelings.
So I'm wondering, like, when you walk around, since you're so good at making fun of people, and you do it improvisationally, when you're walking around, do you have a constant thought balloon that is making fun of people as they walk by or whoever you're talking with? I mean, is that part of you always going on?
No, except in fun, like Bob Newhart was a dear friend of mine. He's a wonderful comedian. You mentioned comedians before. The guy that's always with me a great deal is I never mentioned, and here I am saying it now. But we would, like, for example, when we were in Rome, we'd sit at the piazza while the wives went shopping before 9/11. We used to do that a lot. And we'd pick out people, that girl's a doctor, that guy's a doctor, that guy's gay, that guy's a top dancer, and exaggerate all these different people. But so we both had that basic thing of making fun of what we saw in front of us, which I still do today in my own head, but I don't do it out loud. It's just a thing that's part of it.
And did you have a joke writer, or did you write all your own material?
I never had a joke writer in my life. Except on a television show, naturally. But in person, everything I did on stage, and I just made little notes on a piece of paper and looked at them periodically. Today, once in a while, I listen to a tape, but everything I've ever said that was funny came from me on the stage.
You still performing on stage?
Oh yeah, pretty steady. My dance card has been quite full. I'm very proud of that.
And what's your material like now?
Same, you know, making fun of life and people, same. I do something that took me to the dance years ago, and I'm still doing it because they laugh and still show up and listen.
No, I don't think I've ever ended an interview this way before. And I know that you don't really know me. But before we say goodbye, can I ask you please to make fun of me? To insult me?
No, I would just say that this show took up a lot of time, and I wasn't crazy about you, but hey, listen, you can't have everything.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear.
Can I actually ask you to stay for one more minute? My producer has a question she wants me to ask you. Is that all right?
Sure.
Great.
$5.
What my producer wants to know, and this is a great question, tell us a little bit about what your experiences were like in the Navy, which you alluded to at the end of your act at the Sahara in 1968. I mean, you were drafted, right, during World War II?
No. I enlisted.
You enlisted? Okay.
In the Navy. And the reason I enlisted in the Navy at the time, my father said, don't go in the Army, you'll get dirty. In the Navy, you don't have to lay in the mud or anything like that. That was his participation. And I wanted to be in special service, so I said, and I said my book, and they said fine. I kept stamping my papers. Fast forward, make a story short, I wound up in the Philippines on a PT tender, then on a PT boat for a little while, then back on a PT tender. And I kept saying, I do jokes, and I'm a comedian, and I belong in the show. And I said, keep firing. And I was the one on the ship that made everybody laugh. And after 2.5 years of pretty involved and kind of proud that at this stage of life that I'm one of the few, not many of us alive, the veterans of World War II, and I was proud to be part of the Navy.
Do you feel like you were really changed by that experience, by being under fire?
Oh, gee whiz. Yeah, I went in the Navy, I was a kid, I didn't know what time it was. And when I came home at 22, 23, I was like a man. In those days, that's what you would say. I saw so much of life and so many different situations that made my whole being different.
You said that you were the guy on the ship who kept other people laughing. Was it hard to find the funny side when you're at war?
No, because not every day was a gun going off. We all were 300 men, all locked into one little tiny ship, so to speak. Ship was small considering, and we were all, holding hands by believing to stay with it, not get homesick and not worry about getting hurt, or alphabet the other word, killed. And so we all hung out together pretty much, and I was the guy that always made fun of everybody, and some guys laughed, and some guys, I had a guy called Mike Florida, rest his soul. He was like my buddy. He was a little older. In those days when you're 22 and I'm 18, 22, 23, he was like an old man. And he was my bodyguard. He took care of me because I was always making jokes. Never was a fighter. I always said, you take care of it. And so, not anybody particularly on the ship, but he made it so I became so popular I could say anything.
Are you really going to charge me $5 for having asked you that question?
20.
20, because there were follow-ups.
That's right.
Well, I want to thank you again for talking with us. It's really been a pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much.
I certainly hope so. Thank you.
Don Rickles recorded in 2008. He died yesterday at the age of
32 lanes to take exit 34 for 584 West, US 412 West, toward 66, Tulsa.
terrorizing South Korea. Our film critic David Edelstein has this review.
In the opening of Colossal, a little girl in a South Korean park sees a huge Godzilla-like monster, only slightly goofier looking. Then a title says, 25 years later, and we're in New York, where a hungover, unemployed woman named Gloria, played by Anne Hathaway, wakes up amid the debris of a party and staggers home to her handsome boyfriend, who throws her out. So, you ask, what's the connection between a monster in Asia and a 30-ish Manhattan drunk a quarter century on? It's two different movies, and two different kinds of movie. What I like about Colossal is that the Spanish writer-director Nacho Vigalondo has an elastic notion of genre. This is a film that starts off as a giddy comedy before plunging into a grim psychodrama about a woman's loss and recovery of power over herself and abusive males. That also happens to feature goofy-looking giant monsters throwing each other around Korea. The link between these two disparate elements is both a surprise and the movie's very premise, which means, to avoid spoilers, I'm going to have to tread more carefully than a friendly dinosaur in a kiddie park, meaning I don't want to squash anyone, but I gotta provide some entertainment. The bulk of Colossal takes place in Gloria's hometown, where she moves into her old family house that's apparently stood empty for years. Literally empty. She buys an air mattress, but is so drunk she passes out on it without blowing it up. Help comes in the form of Jason Sudeikis as Oscar, a nerdy guy who clearly had a crush on her as a kid and now can play savior. He shows up with a TV set after they share a drunken night at the dive bar he inherited from his dad.
So you don't remember anything we talked about last night, huh?
I got really melodramatic, didn't I?
Well, you told me that you weren't really on a vacation, that you've been looking for a job for a year, and you've been living with your boyfriend, Tim, and didn't work out. And since you didn't have any money, you decided to move back here for a little while. For the record, I figured out that you were broke on my own, so you don't have to feel bad about it.
Oh, well, congratulations. Is there anything else?
I told you that if you wanted to give me a hand at the bar, you're more than welcome. You'll make a little money while you're staying here.
What did I say?
You said yes. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked you when you're drunk. That's bad timing by me.
No, what are you talking about? It's such a nice thing to do, but, I mean, do you need help at the bar?
If this mess keeps going on, yeah, I'll definitely need help at the bar. Can we get a drink?
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to work at the bar if you agree that we clean up the western side.
All right, you're up.
That's an interesting scene for several reasons. First, the wing of the bar Gloria mentions is a ruin, and so the movie primes you for an upbeat, let's clean up the mess of our lives scenario that doesn't exactly play out. Second, Sudeikis' Oscar is right on the border between endearing and stalkerish. Rescue fantasies are a staple of rom-coms, where unstable princesses often end up with nerdy guys. But director Nacho Vigalondo has more subversive ideas. Gloria's all-night beer binges with Oscar and two dysfunctional pals, played by Tim Blake Nelson and Austin Stowell, are larkish, but also creepy, because these people are addicts in an emotional limbo. Something's not quite right. As for the monster in Colossal, it appears again in Seoul. The sightings 25 years ago were unconfirmed, and this time it's a worldwide news event. The creature is on TV and looking puzzled. It scratches its head in a way that reminds Gloria of herself when she's nervous and perplexed. That's not a spoiler, since the film's poster shows Hathaway and the monster in an identical silly pose, mysteriously in sync in their bewilderment. At first, the connection is hilarious, a riot in two senses, given the pandemonium in Korea. Then things get dark, as we realize these giant monsters, there's one more that arrives, are avatars in a story of domestic abuse, addiction, and buried childhood trauma. I wish I could say those disparate elements totally gel. Anne Hathaway is giving such a delightful screwball performance that when she turns dour, the air goes out of the movie, and the pacing of the last sequence is positively funereal. But given the seriousness of the story, a woman battling her own demons, as well as a violent male, I don't know how Vigalondo could have lightened the tone. And I love the setup of Colossal so much that I forgive it almost everything. It demonstrates that even the dumbest genres can be used to profound ends, not cheapening serious things, but kicking them to the next metaphoric level. A woman finding her inner strength is inspiring, but a woman finding her inner giant monster who kicks butt, that's just so cool.
David Edelstein is film critic for New York Magazine. Monday on Fresh Air, we'll talk about how healthcare became big business. My guest will be Elizabeth Rosenthal, author of An American Sickness, which explains how the pricing and billing of medical services, devices, and prescription drugs became so complicated, even some doctors don't understand it. She's the editor-in-chief of Kaiser Health News. Before becoming a journalist, she was a physician. I hope you'll join us. Fresh Air's executive producer is Dana Lee. Our technical director and engineer is Audrey Bentham, with additional engineering support from Joyce Lieberman and Julian Hertzfeld. Our associate producer for online media is Molly Stevie Nestor. Teresa Madden directed today's show. I'm Terry Gross.
Support for NPR comes from NPR member stations and from ANC, presenting.
Since starting her talk show 30 years ago, Oprah Winfrey redefined the daytime television landscape.
You get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Everybody gets a car.
I'm Lauren Ober, and this week on The Big Listen, we celebrate the cultural phenomenon that was the Oprah Winfrey Show with the folks behind the podcast Making Oprah. Have a listen. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. East, 7 West on NPR Now.
When news breaks, there are lots of questions to answer. That's why NPR News stays with the story.
So to argue
argued the president's order issued just over a week ago is unconstitutional.
The situation with the security of our country is unstable.
They have refused to lift that temporary restraining order in President Trump's policy.
For news of the first 100 days that goes beyond the headlines, listen every day. NPR, always on.
Radio presents a special town hall.
Thrilled to be joined by Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Alan Arkin, and Anne Margaret.
The cast of the new movie, Going Inside.
Never meant to be funny, that goes.
I did.
You had one funny line in there.
The Going Inside Town Hall.
Was there something you took away from this project?
I do. I got a new different WTF.
Hosted by Jessica Shaw, Sunday at 6 p.m. East on EW Radio, Sirius XM 105.
Major funding for On Point is provided by Geico, offering auto insurance coverage for cars, trucks, or SUVs, and providing 24/7 customer service. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO.
From WBUR Boston and NPR, I'm Tom Ashbrook, and this is On Point. Another torrent of news this week, and then boom. The U.S. attacked Syria. Missiles raining down on a Syrian airbase, accused of deploying chemical weapons. An attack ordered by a president who always said, don't do it, gets done. In the U.S. Senate, the nuclear option is invoked to push through Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch. In Florida, Donald Trump sits down with China's leader Xi Jinping. Bill O'Reilly's in trouble, Bannon is bumped a little. Up next On Point, our weekly news roundtable goes behind the headlines. First, this news. Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. President Trump says he has made tremendous progress in meetings this week with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Your Scott Horsley reports the summit was partially overshadowed by U.S. missile strikes in Syria.
Trump's meeting with the Chinese president was bookended by meetings with his national security team and a public announcement of what Trump called a targeted military strike in Syria. Nevertheless, the president says his first face-to-face meeting with the Chinese leader was a good one, and they've begun to form what Trump calls an outstanding relationship.
We look forward to being together many times in the future. And doing lots of very potentially bad problems will be going away.
Trump went into the meeting wanting to discuss the U.S. trade deficit with China and possible cooperation in containing North Korea's nuclear program. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The federal judge in Baltimore is approving a police reform agreement negotiated between that city and the Justice Department. Despite Trump administration request to hold off on the approval. Joel McCord from member station WYPR reports the judge says there's no reason to delay.
Judge James Radar's ruling came only a day after an hours-long hearing in which administration lawyers asked for the delay. The case has already been settled, the judge wrote. The problems are urgent, and it's time to get to work. The agreement stems from a civil rights investigation that was prompted by the 2015 death of Freddie Gray in police custody. Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh says in a statement, the city will continue to move forward in reforming the city's police department. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions says in a statement he has grave concerns the reforms will result in a less safe city. For NPR News, I'm Joel McCord in Baltimore.
Bill Gorsuch will be sworn in as the 113th Justice on U.S. Supreme Court Monday. Senate lawmakers, after clearing procedural hurdles and changing the rules to get around Democratic opposition, confirmed Gorsuch today by a 54 to 45 vote. He'll take the seat vacant by the death of Antonin Scalia. Weaker than expected employment figures for March. The Labor Department says 98,000 jobs were added. Ryan Swank of DS Economics says some areas saw losses last month, including retail, but she says that has to do with a structural change in the economy.
The loss in retail employment is really not a sign of economic weakness, but this move we're all making, sort of we call it rivers to cliffs. We're no longer walking into as many stores and buying online much more, and as retailers adjust to that, they're having to close stores and not hire up.
The unemployment rate, which is compiled using a separate survey, fell to 4.5%. Stocks launched the ground at week's end, closing modestly lower. The Dow down 6 points to 20,656. The Nasdaq was down a point today. You're listening to NPR. Swedish investor investigators say they've launched a nationwide manhunt to run down the person or persons responsible for driving a stolen beer truck into a crowded street in Stockholm, then crashing into an apartment store. Apparent terror attack left at least 4 people dead, 15 others were hurt. Police have arrested one man, saying only he may be connected in some way. California's Governor Jerry Brown is lifting most of the emergency drought restrictions in that state following a near historic amount of rain and snowfall. Bureau's Kirk Siegler reports the emergency water rationing measures have been in place for 2 years.
In a statement, Governor Brown said the current drought emergency is over, but the next one could be right around the corner. And to that end, a couple of the key provisions of his original order are being made permanent. Water agencies will still be required to publicly report their monthly water use to state regulators, and penalties against wasteful water use will still be enforced. The mandatory across-the-board cuts in water use will mostly be lifted, though. There had been concern that lifting the order would also mean state aid for some of the hardest-hit rural counties would go away, but the governor's new order requires that water deliveries to residents in the Central Valley, whose wells are still dry, will continue, as will other aid programs there. Kirk Siegler, NPR News, Culver City.
After something of a dry spell with more practical business types of courses taking precedence, colleges across the country say they're seeing a boom in demand for courses on creative writing. The Association of Writers and Writing Programs says one possible reason schools may be seeing an increased interest is the rise of social media and other forms of self-expression. I'm Jack Spear, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from HostGator, where small business owners can create and manage websites with tools, templates, and 24/7 support. From providing basics for beginners to hosting high-traffic enterprise sites. More at hostgator.com/NPR.
I'm Tom Ashbrook. Each day, NPR brings you the best of public radio, like On Point. Listener support keeps On Point interacting with newsmakers, journalists, and you. At our website, onpointradio.org, you can make a pledge, browse our library of past shows, and continue the conversation online. Make your contribution today at onpointradio.org. And thanks. Boston and NPR, I'm Tom Ashbrook, and this is On Point. This week, a U.S. missile strike on Syria, the nuclear option in the Senate. China's leader comes to visit. Susan Rice in the news. Announcing the missile strike he ordered against Syria last night, President Trump called it a necessary response to a chemical weapons attack.
Beautiful babies were cruelly murdered in this very barbaric attack.
Senate Republicans went nuclear, changing Senate rules to permit the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court without a 60-vote majority. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
This will be the first and last partisan filibuster of a Supreme Court nomination.
And without citing evidence, the president accused former National Security Advisor Susan Rice of criminally unmasking Trump campaign officials in intelligence reports last year. Rice told MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell she did nothing wrong, never would.
Absolutely not for any political purposes to spy, expose anything. Did you leak the name of Mike Flynn? I leaked nothing to nobody, and never have and never would.
This hour On Point, our weekly news roundtable with Molly Ball, Michael Crowley, and On Point news analyst Jack Beatty. You can join us on air or online, but this conversation is always on. What do you think of the strikes on Syria this week, the nuclear option in the Senate? What's going on with Steve Bannon and more? 800-423-8255 is our number. 800-423-TALK, or you can join us online at onpointradio.org. Joining me now from Chicago is Molly Ball, national political writer for The Atlantic. Molly, great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
With us from Washington, Michael Crowley, senior foreign affairs correspondent for Politico. Michael, thanks very much for being here today.
Hi, Tom.
And from New Hampshire, Jack Beatty joins us. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Tom. Hi,
Michael. He was the president at Mar-a-Lago in Florida last night, his private resort, talking about the U.S. carrying out the missile attack on Syria, responding to the chemical weapons attack allegedly by the Syrian government this week. More than 80 civilians dead.
It is in this vital national security interest of the United States to prevent and deter the spread and use of of deadly chemical weapons. There can be no mistake that Syria is banned chemical weapons.
Michael Crowley, what just happened?
Well, Donald Trump upended all our assumptions about his foreign policy and how he sees America's role in the world. This is a president who, for more than a year as a candidate, and even after he was in office, adopted an America First worldview, which said that if it doesn't involve basically our bank accounts or a very direct imminent security threat like a terrorist attack, we are not very interested in what's happening overseas, what's happening inside the borders of other countries.
And he was more explicit about Syria in particular, and even in response to attacks and chemical weapons attack.
Well, Tom, indeed, in 2013, when Barack Obama was preparing to enforce his famous chemical weapons red line, which he said would trigger a dramatic American response if chemical weapons were used in Syria, Trump was denouncing it. He was saying it was stupid to draw the red line, and it was stupid to threaten to attack Syria. Of course, President Obama ended up backing down and cutting a deal with Russia to remove Syria's chemical weapons. We can come back to that. The point is, at the time, Trump was saying this is crazy. He tweeted something to the effect of stay out of Syria, fix USA first. And he maintained that theme, and he continued to say that the whole thing had been dumb throughout this past campaign. And indeed, just a few days ago, senior officials in his administration were saying basically Bashar al-Assad is there to stay. We're not going to do anything about it. And he just absolutely turned on a dime after this latest chemical attack and did something that I think Hillary Clinton might have done, Jeb Bush might have done, Marco Rubio might have done, the exact kind of thing Trump in so many debates ridiculed and denounced and said America had to stop doing. And it's really quite astonishing. Now, he says it's a one-time limited thing. It's not the beginning of a bigger involvement. It's not some grand American re-engagement with the Middle East in some new way. Even so, the statement it sends, the idea that Donald Trump sees America as having a responsibility to enforce these sort of both legal and moral norms that are violated when chemical weapons are used in a country like Syria, I just think is jaw-dropping, and we're still trying to process the implications of it.
The image is, of course, out of that town where the nerve agent apparently was deployed. Just terrible. But then a line from the president that, as you say, was not what his campaign would have foretold. Here he was again talking about what's been going on in Syria.
Years of previous attempts at changing Assad's behavior have all failed, and failed very dramatically. As a result, the refugee crisis continues to deepen, and the region continues to destabilize, threatening the United States and its allies.
Well, there's the rationale. How do you understand what just happened here, and why the president took these steps now, this president?
Well, I definitely agree with Michael that it represents a flip-flop for Trump, but I think it also is a clarifying moment about two competing philosophies that he espoused, because he did definitely espouse this America First transactional view of foreign policy on the campaign trail, and he, as Michael said, was explicitly against